Hello! As you saw that on the demo, today we are going to build quiz app. We are going to use React.js and using Material UI. And also we are going to use third-party API. On this tutorial, you will learn how to use API on React app. So working as a front-end developer in real life in companies, you will be working with the API. API that will be built by your backend team in the same company, or maybe it will be a third-party API similar to one that we are going to use today. So just let's start directly to dive in. So just open your terminal to create your React app. I'm going to open mine, and you need to navigate to the place that you are going to create your React app on. I'm going to create it on desktop. Just will do cd, then desktop, and then autocomplete. Tab it for autocomplete. Then here you need to create your React app. For me, I'm going to, as I mentioned, to create on desktop, just do npx create -react -app, and then your React name. Let me just change this one. Instead of x, should be c mistyped. And after that, just add your React app name. It's going to be quiz in this scenario -app, and then hit enter. So that is finished now. Let's navigate into that directory as I just mentioned here. Do cd, then your React app name, and it's going to be quiz hit tab that will do autocomplete for you. Now we inside our directory or inside our React app directory, and then to open this in VS Code you need to write code and space dot and hit enter. So this will open it in your VS Code. And before go to the code itself, we are going to install some packages here so that we are going to use them later. First, you need to do npm, then I stand for install. Then the packages we need to add, first one is going to be Axios. We are going to use this package later to make a request to the API so we can get some data. And the second one that we need to add is Material UI, the one that we are going to use it for our components and also Material UI icons. So we are going to use some icons for Material UI icons, and then hit enter. So that's just finished installing these packages. Let's run our app. Do npm start, hit enter. That will just start your app automatically. Will be open on 3000 port in your browser. That will take some second to compile. So let me bring the browser here. That's now is try to load. Here we are. This is our React app. So let's just clean some code that we don't need here. Let's open this into window here. Let's go to our React app. Let's just close this welcoming page and come back to our source here. And inside this app.js, we are going to remove everything here, leave all this div. We're going to just create app component. And also, we are going to remove this app.css. We are not going to use it, same as this logo. Let's remove that one. And after removing this, we need to also remove this class. We don't need it. And let's remove this logo also, as we remove it from, just delete this one as we remove it from app component, and remove also app.css. We are not going to use it. Move that one. After we remove this, now we need to go to public so we can rename our app name. Here is, instead of React app, it's going to be just quiz app, and it is up to your app that how you need to call it. So as you see here, that's now just displaying this app component. And let's just close this one. Let's come back to this app component, and here we need to go back to our API documentation, whereas here it's called Trivia API. It is also this free for developer, so they can use it for development, or maybe you can create a project and add it to your portfolio, as we are going to do now. And here they're giving you an option how you can use the API, and basically here you can specify the number of the questions that you need to get. For example, I'm going to get here, for example, 10, and specify the category. For example, I need to select a sport, and difficulty, is it easy, medium, hard? Is going to select easy. The type, this one for multiple choice or true false. We are not going to use this because it's not reliable, because this is a free API, is not work like perfectly. I'm going to ignore this one. And last one, also this is an option, is to encode your URL. We are not going to encode it because it's for learning and development. And you can press this get API URL, automatically will create this URL for you. You can copy the URL and go to open new tab here and try paste that URL here and just hit enter. That will come back with this nice JSON data. So this will be returned as a result. Each result will be categories, the same category with the question and correct answer, incorrect answer. And this is the URL that we are going to build or to make a request to, but we are going to build dynamic interface as this documentation is showing here. Let's go directly, just copy this URL, and we are going to, before copying that, we are going to create a component. Let's just have more space here. Let's close this public. Inside source, we are going to create components directory, components, and inside these components, we are going to create first component called QuizCategories. QuizCategories should be, it has to be, we start with a capital letter, QuizCategories.jsx. And inside here, let's create just simple React component. And we're gonna just write here categories, quiz categories. Quiz categories component, remove this quiz here. And we don't need this React here, import, because it's React 17. In React 17, we don't need to import React. And inside app.js, we can import that component we just created. It's called quiz categories. From categories should be camel case. From then open single or double quotes dot slash components slash categories quiz or quiz categories, and new space here. Let's just convert this also to E6 syntax. Const and equal, this will be arrow function, and inside this, instead of this hard-coded app component, we are going to replace this one to be this new component we just created and save it. If we open this here, instead of that old text, we have this quiz category now. I created this category just I'm trying to leave app component as simple as possible. So we'll go to this quiz categories here, then we can request our categories. So basically here on the top, we need first to import Axios, the package that just we installed. We need to import this package, and after importing the package, we need to create a function so we can make a request using this URL here to make a request to get this JSON data. And let's just add new here space. Let's create a function const fetch called fetch quiz categories. And this quiz categories is going to make a request to the API that we are going to get the data from. First, let's create const variable response, and this will be make a request by calling this axios.get, and this will make a request to this URL. Let's copy this URL that we get it from the API here. Just open this, and because it's asynchronously being called, we need to use async await. So to avoid using .then, and to use that, we need to add here async and save it. Let's just console log now after this line to see the response. We can get it back. Console log response, and here we need to console log that one. This will not do anything because we didn't call the function. We need to call this function when this component just being rendered. And to do that, we need to call use effect. I need to import that first from React. Use effect, and that will be from React. And after importing use effect, we need to call it down here before return. Use effect will be has a callback function, and inside this callback function, we need to add here comma then square. This will tell use effect it will be calls only once when the component being rendered. Then we need to call this function down inside this use effect. And just when the component is rendered, it will make a request or will call this function. The function will make request to this API endpoint, and this API endpoint should return back this data. So if you go back here to this and try to open the console, and if you see here down, let's just add more space here. And if you see here on the console, we have this object. If we open the object, has the response, and the response has config and the data. We care about the data. And this data has results. As you see here, this API, if you go back here, this API has results. So same as we have here, basically. We have results and we have response code. We care about these results. And results will be around 10 categories, which has indexes start from 0 to 9, which is 10. The length will be 10. This is a list of categories that we are going to get. This is a list of categories, but we need to get this data and displaying it on the user interface. So before getting this data and display it on the user interface, we need to create initial state where we can store this data. So to do that one, let's create a state here, initial state. It will be called use state, and that autocomplete here. The initial state will be called categories or quiz categories. Quiz categories, or just call it categories instead, because already there's a component called quiz categories. This is the initial state. We need to make it camel case set categories, and the initial state will be just empty array. And here we can call this set categories instead of this console log. We can call that function, and we need to use the new response that we get. This response, instead of response, we can destructuring this one to be just like this. Object inside will be data. So this will be same as using response.data, but instead of say response.data, we can destructure that just to access the data directly. And after accessing data, this data, as you see, it will be data.results. We need to do here just dot results will be data dot results. And again down here, just before return, we can add console log this complaint because there is no use state. We need to import this use state from React, same as use effect. Just add a comma here and import it, and let's add a console log here to console log again the categories that we just set at the top. After the initial state will be empty array. When after make the request, it will be updated with the new data. So if you scroll back here down, if you see, as you see here, this is the new one. The new categories will be an array, and that array has list of categories. So this is the initial step that now we create an initial state for our categories. But before go further, if you notice here, we have question. Each category has an object has a question, has incorrect answer, and has also answer, correct answer, has also this correct answer and incorrect answer. we need to first to have all both of these in one array, so we later on easily we can use them. Instead of each one of them, it will be in different key. So to do that, first here we are going to create additional more functionals to do this for us. So basically, first we need to format that data. To do that one, let's create new variable here, call it const formatted data, and then assign it to data dot results and dot map, so we can map over each category. So it will be this category, and then callback function, and inside this callback function we are gonna to refactor this one to return an object, return object, and this object will be returning all the category as it all this data, for example, as it, but we're gonna to add one more key. Let's spread everything inside this category, inside this object, and add comma after this one. We need to create new key called answers. So this will be all answers, correct and the wrong answers. So as you saw here, this is a correct answer, and this incorrect answer, and this correct answer. We need to have all of them in one array. So this first we have this incorrect answer is already an array. So if we try to say, for example, category dot incorrect answer will be this array, and we can do concat, then concat this will add one element to this array, which will be this, for example, correct answer. So now we'll have array of all answer, correct and incorrect. So to access this correct answer, you need first say category dot correct answer. So now we access this one. So basically, but this it will be obvious when adding this new element to this array. It will be added to the end or of this array. So then that easily you can figure out the result. Basically, when you get the question, will be easily to figure out the answer. So we need to make it difficult so people they will not recognize the answer by the position of it. So to avoid that one, we need to create a function. Randomly we can insert this correct answer inside incorrect answers. And to do that one, let's just create new variable here, const. The variable name, just let's call it incorrect answer indexes. Let's create first this one, incorrect answer indexes, and this should be camel case here. And here just first I need to get the indexes for incorrect answers, and to do that one it will be just categories dot incorrect answer dot lengths. And now we have these indexes, and after we get the indexes for incorrect answer, then we need to create a random index. Const will be variable called random index, and this random index will be equal to, first we need to round this, or before rounding this, let's just get the random number, mass dot random. So this one, it will allow us to get a random number between specific, for example, min number and maximum number. For example, the minimum number will be 0 and the maximum number will be this incorrect answer indexes. To do that, first we need to add this. You need to first to multiply this by incorrect indexes dot, or this is dot length will be incorrect indexes, and then minus minimum number. The minimum number will be 0, and this one will be, and this one will be additional to that one by 0 plus 0 or plus minimum. Then after we get this random indexes, we can then here, instead of doing this here, we can just use these categories. You can just use category.incorrect answers. And to update this one, we need to call a slice method. The slice is an array method that will allow us to replace an item inside array, or removing it, or adding one new element. We are going to add one new element, but to random index. And to do that one, you need to call this array. It will be category.incorrect answers dot slices dot splice, dot splice, and then the first param here will be the number of the index, which we don't know. We need to be this one, it will be just random. And then the second one, if you need to remove any item, we are not going to remove any item, we are going to add 0. That means you don't need to remove any item. Then the last one will be the item itself, and the item will be category dot correct answer, this one here. So now if we save this one and try it again to see the console log here, we should have a new answer key inside each object here. And if let's just reload the page. Since we didn't update that, we need to reload the page. And if we open that again, and it still will not see it, because as you see here, still we're setting these categories to use data.result. Instead of this, we should use this new variable here, formatted data. Let's change this to be formatted data. And after formatted, if we save it, let's open this last console log and open categories. Let's open first categories. If you see here, we have these answers, and we have now 4 answers in one array. And if you see this correct answer called horse riding, and you see this one taking the second index. And if you go to next category, we'll see this. Now the correct answer is taking different index now. As if you notice now, from instead of index, here this is the first index, second index, third index, and here instead of the third index taking the second index. So that's how it will be randomly being added to this array, so it will be hard for a user to figure out which is the correct answer. Now we formatted our categories data, and this is the hardest part. Then everything is going to be straightforward. So the next step that we need, instead of, as you see here in this URL, we need, instead of this dynamic, or instead of this static amount and category, and same as difficulty, we need to get this dynamically, so the user can update this. For example, user can specify the category, which category would like to get question for, and same the difficulty, can select the difficulties, and same the amount, how many question I need to get. Instead of this hard-coded, we need to make interface that will allow the user to get all this data. And to do that one, we need to create first a form. I have already created form here, and I will just bring that form, and I will try to explain it line by line. Let's just copy this one. And here on return, instead of this, I'm going to remove this. And I'm going to return this one. I'm going to remove this condition for now. And in the top here also, let's remove this condition too. And this one, closing tag here, save it. Close this one, save it, and after saving it, we need to import this here from Material UI containers. This is a Material UI component, as same as paper and typography, and here also the grid system that we're going to use it to make a layout for our components or for our application. Let's first just import this components from Material UI at the top here, and now we imported them. Let me just also enable ESLint, so this will help us to avoid any issues that, so it will guide us if there is any issue. For example, here it will highlight this class is not available. I'm going to add that later. So let me just explain this first line by line. First, here we are importing this container component to wrap all our things into middle of the screen, and then we're calling this paper component to have a style as a paper. And to get, you can get this from Material UI. If you come to Material UI here, for example, here if you go down, we are using this select form component. This select component, you can get it from here, Material UI, and you can press this menu here. You can see all the components, and here you can select component. And if you need to get the access to the code, you can open this tag. You will scroll down where you can just scroll down here and then copy the select component and make it work for you. So it will be same as this here select component example. This will be same as this one. Just we're changing the values here to be matching our needs. And same this, we have 3 select component here. First select component to select a category, and second select component we can select the difficulty, and third one here we can select or this is input, is not a select, this is a text field where we can specify the number of the questions that we need. So as you see, this one here is complaining about the classes. This classes is how we can add styling for Material UI. As you see here, we need to call this first, to call this function to how we can add styling to this one. You need to call it here at the top just before our component name. And we need to import this make a style. As you say, specify here, we can import it from Material UI core. We can just copy this one, and already we have this list of imports. We can just import it here at the top, and then we need to call this function inside here, so to access classes as they just describing here. Already we have example. We can just copy this, and inside after our first state we can add new line. Now we have classes, and we have this user styles, and that shouldn't complain anymore. And we need to add these classes. Basically we have class for paper, and we have additional class for main title. And let me just bring these 2 classes. I have it already them here. I created them earlier. First one for the paper, you need to define a class. How to define class inside this will be treated as a JavaScript CSS. It will be just an object. We need to identify your class name. It will be paper in this scenario. And I'm adding this just padding, normal CSS padding, margin top, and also margin button, border radius, and box shadow. So this for our paper. And for the main title, that just has very simple CSS here. We need to add one new line, and has only font size and margin button. And now we have this first 2 classes we added to this use styles, and how we can access them. We can call these classes, and we can define just class name as normal way how we can add a class name to in our React app. So then the class name will be, you can access it by call this classes dot your class name. So now we have this class. We added our paper class, and we added the main title class. Let's see if there is any class that we need to add. So in this component still we need this submit button. So submit button also is class I created earlier. Also has a basic CSS here. Just add new line after this. And this class it has also margin top, border radius, background, and hover effect. So basically when you will hover, will change the background color to this color, and the box shadow as it has this really nice box shadow. We can see that just in a minute. After just finishing these functions, we need to create this handle submit functions. So let me just bring that handle submit functions. I already have it created, and I will explain that line by line. And just after this use effect, let me add new line here and add this. For now I'm going to comment this. We'll explain it later when we need to come to this point. Now we have this handle submit. Next one, category, and we're going to add this category sooner, and this handle select change, and let's create this use create markup function. And to create this markup function, So this one, it will allow you to render HTML code in any component. Basically, I will explain later also what is this exactly will do. If I just bring this function here, so this it will, as I mentioned, it will allow you just to convert a normal HTML code to be rendered in your component. So by default, it will not render unless you add this function here, and then you call that function inside your component. For example, here is this or your HTML element. Here this is span, and calling dangerously set inner HTML, and then calling the function that we define at the top, and then the text that you need to render it as a HTML. And that text usually will have some code. So to make that code work as a HTML element, you need to call this function, so in case to have it render in your component. I will explain this also later exactly. I will show you the difference before using this and after using this function. Next step here, we need to define this states, or difficulty state, number state, and also category state. Let me just bring these states here, and here just on the top, after this state here, let's add one new line. And I already have categories, so let me remove these categories. We need to define a category. So for example, if you see here, when a user select a category, it will be handle this single category. So this will be the single category that the user selected, and when user select, we'll call this function to set the initial category. So the initial category will be an object, so let's just be empty object. So category, it will be empty object, and then also we need to create initial quiz number. This will be this number. For example, how many questions you would like to get them back. And the difficulty also will be same as the difficulty, for example, easy, medium, or hard. So we need to select this one. And now we defined these three states. So for now, let's just remove this. We can remove this quiz data for now. We'll add it later. And we defined to have category, we have quiz number, and difficulties. This is the three inputs that we need in this project. So we'll allow our user to select a number of questions that need to get back, and category, which categories you need to get a question for, and also how the difficulty, is it easy, medium, or hard. So we'll allow the user to add these three input. So that we have these three now, and as you see here, we can check in our first select, in the value, we check if there is a category, get the category ID, otherwise set the default value to be empty string. And same will be down for our difficulty. It will check if there is an ID, it will get the ID, otherwise we'll use empty string. And we need to create this two handler here. First, we need to create a handle select change. And to create this function, I have it here, just let's bring it. After this line handle submit, let's add new line here. So this handle select change is a simple function. Calling this function, it will return event, and then we call .prevent default. So this will help us to prevent default browser behavior. And then inside here, we're setting our category. For example, we're calling this set category to set this initial category instead of empty object to be the actual value. And also to get all the categories data, as you see, this select here will allow us to get only the ID. If you see here, the value will be the category ID. So we are interested in all category data, basically, not only the category ID. We're interested in category ID and the category question, and some more data maybe later we can use. So because of that, I'm using the ID that we're getting it from this event to get the actual all category data. As you remember, we have all categories data that at initially at the top on this initial state. So we can use this ID, new ID, we got it here through this event to filter out or to find the specific categories that we need. So by this way, and we're calling this find because we have list of categories here, we'll try to get only one category using the same this ID. And we accessing the ID, as I mentioned, by using event.target.value. And this one, it will return one object has a categories data. After getting that object, we'll just set this category with the new value on the top here. So basically, we can console log that later after adding the next on-click handler, or on-change handler. This scenario will be handle difficulty change. To add that one, let me just bring the function. And this is a handle difficulty change. So this will be for selecting difficulty. So basically, we'll do the same as this handle category. Basically, first here will prevent the default browser behavior, and then we calling this list of difficulties. We find only one difficulty that matching this target value. Basically, we'll do the same as we did for category here. Will be difficulties.find one difficulty using the same this ID we just selected. And we need to create these difficulties because we don't have it now. I just created one hard-coded array so that will just represent this difficulty. I will just bring it at the top here. So it will help us to identify all three difficulties. Will be just an array, has three difficulties, and each difficulty has an ID and also has name. So this is a name that will be appear, for example, when you select press here, it will appear this name, but the actual value behind scene will be this one. As you see here, this will be total easy question count. So then later when we make request, we'll use this name to make a request to get a list of categories, as you see here. That is hard-coded now. And if you see this one is title case, I'm going to change it later to be lowercase always. So now we have these difficulties, and then we can just use find method. We can find exact difficulty that we need. After getting that exact difficulty, we just set the initial difficulty instead of empty. This should be instead of empty object to be the new value. Last one that we need to add, set quiz number. And to set the quiz number, there is a handler called handle on change. And let me just bring that handle on change. And on the top here, just after this line, let me add one more line. Handle on change will do the same other handler, just slightly different. At first, it will just prevent the default browser behavior. And second one, simply, it will just access the value from the target and then set the number with the new value. That it basically. Now we have our quiz number, this one here. We can specify the numbers that we need to add. And we can set our difficulties, the one that now we can here set which difficulty we need. And last one here, selecting the actual category that we need to get a questions for example, this categories here. So now we have these three of them, and should be everything work fine. If we save this one, if we go to our app, should be still working. Woohoo! Now, as you see, this one we have. This is a paper I was just talking about, the material UI paper. This component here will build this paper for you. And then this typography, which will be just displaying this get questions. And this normal HTML form has onSubmit handler. We'll call this onSubmit. This function at the moment doesn't do anything. And next one, we're calling this grid. The grid just will allow us to add for each element to take the full width and also to leave some margin between each input. Basically, by calling first the parent, by wrapping all the content by one grid system. Grid, it will be work as a container, so to wrap all the children. And we call this also second props spacing. So we'll add this spacing will be as a margin, so between each item. Then inside this grid, we add also grid for each child or each item. As you see here, we have around 3 items inside this grid, and each item will represent different input or select. For example, this grid here, we treat it as item by passing this props, call it items, and we'll give it full width, basically from extra small screen until larger screen will take the full width, which will be 12. And same, this will be for all 3 items basically, or 3 child. And here each child will using just material UI select component, the one that just I showed you earlier. Here where you can add a select, and here we have 2 select, and this code is the same basically. You can get it from material UI, just you can copy it from there. You can just update the text here, match your select text. And last one here will be a text field. It will be different from select, and this text field also, it is a component here on material UI. You can get it from some around here text field, this one. So you can get the same, you can get the code by pressing this icon. You can get it from here. So it'll be the same as this text field. I'm just adding here just more props to take it to get the full width. The only number that we can make request to will be between 1 and 10. Will not be more than 10, and it will not be minimum than 1. So that just to restrict the user to use to get a number between this, because the API is not reliable with all different numbers. They suggesting to use maximum 50, but I'm trying to use only 10 here to make sure always the user can get a content. And then the rest will be found here on the documentation for material UI, and the rest is normal basically. And this on change, we're just calling the function that we can target this input or text field value. And same as here on change, we can access this select component value by calling this handle difficulty change as we did at the top. That is basically, if we go back to our app here, that now how does it look like? So basically we should, when we try press select, this one should show a list of categories. Let's see why we don't see categories here. And here we call this select component, and we try to map each over all categories, and each category will try to show the values here. If try, let's open more space here. And for all our select elements here, or for all categories, we'll map over all categories and try to check for each category. We'll get this menu item and then calling this function to access category name. So the issue here, basically, when we try to select here, we're trying to access specific categories that we didn't get yet. So basically, if you see here, we're getting all the categories data, but we need to get only category name, for example, and category ID. And to access that one, already the API documentation is telling us here at the bottom how you can access all categories, all available categories, by making a request to down, let's see here, somewhere here, look up for categories. By calling this endpoint, we can get list of categories. If you add this one and hit enter, we can get array of categories, and this array has a category name and category ID. And that what we should get here, basically when select here, we should displaying that one. We need to create initial state here, call it, for example, if we just duplicate this one, and let's call it this quiz categories, and this will be set quiz categories. And now we have this initial state. We need to create another function that to call or to fetch our this quiz category, and the function will be called fetch quiz categories. We have already this function here. Need to change this function to be just fetch categories instead of quiz categories, because this will be mixed with each other. Let's create another function called fetch quiz category, and this one make a request to the new API that we just got it. Let's see what's wrong here. Fetch quiz categories, yeah, that's complaining just because it's not being used. We'll make a request by using the same way here, calling Axios, but with a different URL that we can get it from here, and we can change this URL to be the new URL that we just got it. And after get that, we can set our categories, this quiz categories, by getting the response. It will be response it will be data.trivia.categories. You can access it here. It will be data.trivia._categories. How you can know that one? You can just console log here, log, and console log data. Add it here. Just be the string is to identify this console from other consoles. Save it. So this function will not be called randomly. So basically we need to call this function when the component being mount. Instead of this one, we are going to call this fetch categories. Now we fetched all categories, then we'll call this function here. If we go back to app and try reload, this one is complaining about this await because we need to add here async. Let's save it, and that will take some second loading. Open the console on your browser, open this data. This is the console that we added. As you see here, it will be data.trivia_categories. This is a list of categories that we need first to display them here. And now we got this list of categories, and this set quiz categories, we can use this quiz categories down here instead of this just categories. We can replace it with this one. So basically it will be quiz categories, then we map over each category to access the value will be category.id, and here we can then display the actual category by accessing category.name, and that's how we can access it. As you see here, we have this name and this ID. And now if you save that one, if you go back to this app and try see, now we have list of categories, and now we can select category basically. Let's see what's wrong here. Category.id cannot read proprietary ID. So here on this handle select change, we need to access this, and instead of categories will be quiz categories. So because we need to filter out only one category, or to find out one category, instead of categories will be quiz categories.find, and then we update it with the new value. If we save that one and try reload, and if we can select category, now we can select any category that we need, and also we can select difficulty, and we can add a number basically. And if we add this number and hit this one, should be complaint. This shouldn't allow us to go to next step. As you see, say value must be less than or equal to 10, and if we change it to be 0 and here press this button, it will tell us value must be greater than or equal to 1. So that now is handling the validation. And if we just also reload this one and try just submit like that, also this field is required. It will ask you to fill it. And if you select category and press this one, it will ask you this field also is required. So basically all fields will be required. So now we handling these 3 of them. Next step, we need to get, when select here, need to see if we can get the actual value. And to do that one, basically we can add here category. We have category, the one that we select, and also we can access the difficulty and number. So this difficulty, we can just add 1 comma here, and we can access with that quiz number. If you scroll up here, quiz number, we need to just check this first. We need to validate these are correct, this value that we are looking for. If you open the console log here and clear this one and reload it, and let's select category, and then select difficulty, add a number 3, and see down here, let's open console log. We have quiz number 3, we have difficulty and array, an object with the ID and with name and theme as category, an object with ID and name. That's what we are looking for. And as you see here at the initial point, we access this category by calling this hard-coded URL. So now instead of this hard-coded, we can access the actual value by accessing this value being selected by user. For example, number of the questions that we need to get, it will be now dynamically by accessing this value. And to add that one, we need to first to change these double quotes to be backtick, so we can add the variables inside the string. this in E6 syntax by calling $, then object or curly braces. Inside here we can call the variable. And same for the category. This number will be, as you see here in the console log, just directly a number. But the category, because it's an object, then it will be category.id. The $, open object or curly braces inside category.id. And for difficulty, it will be difficulty dot let's see difficulty dot name. We need to access difficulty dot name. As I mentioned earlier, this title case, we need to change it to be lowercase, as you see in the example we have $. And to do that one, we need to call first this difficulty dot name, then dot to lowercase. This method in JavaScript, how we can convert the text to be lowercase. So now we can access this dynamically. We can get the data, and this data will be we'll make a request to this API with this user input number, the number of the question, and the ID for a category, specific category being selected from here. And also we'll add the difficulties, the difficulty type, easy, hard, or medium. So then after getting all of this, we can call this function inside here. If you see here earlier that I said I will come back to this one, we can add a condition here. We need to make sure first we have a quiz data, and we have a number, a quiz number, we have category ID, and we have difficulty. So this will be difficulty.name. Make sure also we have difficulty.name. I will come back to this quiz data. Basically, then we'll call this fetch categories. So this quiz data, we will mean by quiz data the categories, this quiz categories data here. When make fetch categories, we'll get list of categories. We call this set categories. This set categories will set these categories here. So instead of this quiz data on handle submit, here we call this quiz data. So instead of calling this these categories, because we have this here fetch categories and we have fetch quiz categories, so that maybe will mix with each other and make it more difficult. So for better naming, I'm going just to change this one to be quiz data. So this after adding the number of the question we need, and also the specify the category, and adding also the difficulty, then the actual data will be the quiz data, the final data that we need, so we can then start answering the questions. And here, after updating this one, we need also to update this set categories, as we're calling it here. Instead of set categories, will be set quiz data. And now we have quiz data here. We need to make sure if there is no quiz data and there is a number, and there is this is a number will be a question number, so that we need to get back. And then we have a category. This is a category that we need to get a questions for. And also we have difficulty of these categories. Basically, how is it difficult? And if we all of these conditions true, they make request. So I'm adding this condition here just to avoid our application crash or firing an error, basically, because we expecting this value here to be available. So by making that condition, then sure always will get the values here, basically. And now here on handle submit, we'll make a request, and when calling this function will get with a new value, where we can then console log just here. Basically, we can add a console log and see the new data that we get it back, or the questions data, basically. If we save this one, and let's first clear the console log at the bottom here, we have it. Only have one console log, and if we reload and try to select one of this category, add difficulty, number of question, let's just 2, and then press submit. And now at the bottom here, this is a new console log. We have one array has 2 objects, and each object will represent a question, and each question has answers and has a question itself. The type will be auto added. Basically, the difficulty is the ones that we selected, easy and incorrect and correct. And as this I explained earlier, we refactor or we format this data to have answers array. So this one initially will not be, we will not have this as the API response. We created this earlier as if you remember here at the top, we formatted the data to have answers array. So now we have all the questions data. So we need to display that data to the user basically. When the user selected, after the user selected the category and the difficulty and added the number of the question, need to get back. After submit or after pressing submit, we need then to display the actual data that we're getting it back from the API. And to do that one, let's just create new component. And just before that, we need to just recap this one or refactor this and see if there is anything missing here we need to remove. We need just remove this console log we added here. And as you see here, the browser is complaining here about this stripe mode. So let's just remove this stripe mode. And to remove the stripe mode actually is available on index.js, this here. So you can come here and just remove this React.stripe and leave only app component, and you can save this one. And if you save it and come back here and try reload this one again and have more space here, reload it, and after reload just clear the console log. After clearing the console log, you can select new category. Now see, we don't have that error, and now we have clean console log. So let's just close this file. So after we got the quiz data here, basically now we can create our QuizAnswers component where we can use this quiz data so the user can answer the questions. So in same directories component, let's create another file, call it QuizAnswers.jsx. And inside here, let's create a component. And this component, need to just remove this import. It's gonna to get a props. So this props will have quiz data. So basically, instead of this call it like that, if I need to console log it here, just add new line here, add log, console log, and open this object. Instead of to call it like, let's remove this even, add just a string to identify your console log, and just instead of calling this props dot quiz data, we need to destructuring that. We don't need to call this like this way. To avoid it, just to use E6 syntax feature, we can destructuring this props because this is an object. We can just calling it like that. Open curly braces and just remove this one. This will be the same approach basically. This E6 syntax, how you can destructuring an object. So we can access the quiz data like that. We can render it here, and inside here we can add just normal text or dummy text. Call it just quiz answers, and save it like that. And just for now, we need to console log this quiz data, and we need to import this component basically to have it being rendered. We need to call it inside quiz category. First, we need to import it at the top here. Import quiz answers, and this one has to be with the uppercase letter, and from with the same directory slash will be called quiz answers, and a semicolon here. After calling this, we need to call the function the component at the bottom on render here. Now we have this component. Basically, we need, after pressing this submit button, hide this component, get questions component, and showing quiz answer component. So to do that one, we need first to add here logic. Basically, before this, we need to tell, let's just collapse this one here, add one new line here. So basically here in this line, we need to make a condition first, open the curly braces. We can mix HTML with the JavaScript inside render by using this curly braces. And inside curly braces, we are going to create a state called current quiz step. If the current quiz step, current quiz step is equal, this should be camel case. If current quiz step is equal to start, then try to render the get question content. We need to add this question. This is called ternary condition, so you can add it in one line. So if the current quiz equal start, render this get question component or data. Otherwise, let's render this component quiz answers. That will be adding this column, render the component that we just imported as a top quiz answers. So this will complain because in JSX or JavaScript XML, it will expect all the children to be wrapped by one parent. So to do that one here, just after this, let's add one new line and add this called React fragment, and just before all this content and after the form here, let's close it. And if we save it, that is still complain because we didn't close this curly braces. We need to close it just after this component. And if you save it now, that's fine. Now it's working. But it's complaining because we didn't create a state for this current steps yet. Let's create initial state here. If we duplicate this one and add just new line here, this would be called current quiz steps, and let's just change this to be capital C, and the current value, the initial value will be called start. So when pressing this submit button, we need to reset the current steps to be results instead of start. And to do that one, we need to call this set current quiz steps on handle submit, so which it will be called when we're pressing this button on handle submit here. This handle submit will call fetch categories because we don't need to do it just before this being finished, because this function, it will call this API, and this API is synchronously being called, so it will take some second, then it will come back with the result. So we don't need to just hide this content when calling this function, but we need to hide it after getting the response back, basically, which will be just here in this, after this line. You can add this line and just add the param. It will be called results. So this results, this will update the initial value instead of a start to be results. So when this updated, it will hide this content and it will show this quiz answers. And this quiz answer is expect a props called quiz data. This is how we can pass a props quiz data. Quiz data. Now we added that. Let's just test it. If we just clear this one and reload this one, let's select category film, for example, easy. We need only two questions. Submit. Now that hiding the previous content and showing only quiz answer component. And if you see also on the console log here, we have two responses. These two categories, the one that we just rendered here on the top in this component, basically, if you see this quiz data. So that the quiz data, now we're getting the quiz data. So we need now to render this quiz data list of cards or list of paper. Each paper will have a question and also will have a drop or select list. So to have to select one answer from this multiple, as you see here, we have this answers array has 4 answers. So we need to allow the user to select one of these answer to answer this question here. For example, this is a question. We'll display a question, then we'll add a select list, select one answer. And to do that one, just let me bring, already have code for that one. to bring it inside this component, then I will explain that line by line. And first let me bring that one, QuizAnswer, and inside QuizAnswer, inside render, let's just remove all this from return. And here at the top, let me remove this also props, and this will be because, as I also explained earlier, this will expect all children to be wrapped by one parent. And we are going to use React fragment here to wrap all the children by this fragment. And then inside here, we calling this material UI typography. Then inside here, just we calling this section, which will be called answer following questions. So we'll have list of questions that the user can answer, but at the same time, we need to tell the user what is this page will represent. And then inside, we have a form. And this form, it will have a list of questions. So basically, we add a grid system here so we can wrap all the content by this grid system to, as I explained earlier, it will wrap them as a container, and it will add space between each list item or each select. And also each child will have also grid. It will be treated as item, and from extra small screen until large screen will take the full width. And this the quiz data that we pass as a props. Then we can map over that quiz data, and each quiz will display inside paper. This material UI component will display the question by calling this typography, and then inside here I'm calling this span to use this dangerouslySetInnerHTML, as I explained earlier, that this question will be having some code in the text. By default, React will not display that as a code on the browser. It will display it as it comes out from the API. To avoid that one, we'll call this method basically. Then we call this component or material UI component select component, and here we'll tell the user to select an answer, and inside the select we'll render a list of answers by accessing quiz.answers, the object that I just showed you earlier. See here, these answers here have list of answers, it's an array. Then we're mapping over each answer. We call this menu items. So the value will be the answer itself, and then here it will display the same. We need to use the same logic. So if there is any code on the text that's coming back, for example here in this answers, it will also format it to be rendered correctly, so by using this method. And that it. So now let's just import this material UI components, which you need to import them at the top. Just before the component, save add space, and this I import them from material UI. And now also this is expecting these classes as a props. We need to pass this down as a props. And need to access this also create markup function. We can pass this also as a props from top level. And let's first pass this two functions, one this function and this object. So if we go back to QuizCategories, just down here we can pass this to this one by calling the props. This is how we can pass the props by calling the name of it, and the value will be this create function at the top here, as you see this one here. And then we need to pass also classes. As you see, we defined classes here. Can access that down. We can pass additional one props here, and more space. And now we have these three props. Let's just maintain this one. And inside this new quiz component, we're using classes to access the paper, and also to access main title, and to access this question. We don't have question class. We need to add that one. If you go back up again to the use style function here, this we need to add a question styling, and to do that one, let me bring it. And it's just simple CSS styling. Let's see where is this clause. Add one new line after this object. So it's just this object has font size and margin button, font weight and line height, just to add some nice CSS to that questions and answers. So now we added that. Let's see what is left. Handle result. This handle result will be a function that we need to create in the same directory. Const handle submit equal, we'll just have event callback function, and we'll call just prevent default here for now, and later we'll add some more code for this function. And also we have this related answer functions, so need to bring this function. I have it already here. It will filter answers. So to give you the related answer, basically this related answer function will expect a question and selected answers, and we need to create initial state for our selected answer. So when a user select answer, we need to create a state so that we can update the list of the answers that are being selected by the user. Basically, this is the initial selected answer will be empty array. When the user try to select one answer for a question, then we'll update this array to have a list of object. So basically inside this related answers, we expected this selected answer, it will be passed down here, as you see here, passed down, and also the first parameter will be the actual question that the user answered, and then after passing this two param here, make a condition will check if there is a selected answer and selected answer length is available. That means if there is a content inside this array, then try to find a question same the one that the user just selected, or the user that selected answer for. After getting that question, then try to get the answer. Basically, just because the question will be an object, will be something like this and has list of content. So I will just console log this later or after I get to the correct step. So basically will be an object, and to access an answer will be inside that object. By this way, first we'll try to make sure there is a related question in this variable, because this one, if the question was available, it will be an object. Then we'll say related question dot answer. So this will return the exact answer that we need. So otherwise, if there is no available, it return just empty string. And same as here, if this condition is not true, we return empty string. And this function here just will set the value to be the answer that the user selected, or it will be empty string. And on change here, we'll call this handle answers change. Let me just bring that. And on this function handle answer change, let me just add new line after this here, after this function. And on here, we'll get an event, and also we'll get selected question. So basically, when we call this function here down, we'll pass the event as a callback function here. We can access the event. And the second one will be the actual question. To access the question will be the quiz here that after we map over all the quiz data, then that will return list of quiz. So for this quiz, we can get the question by calling just quiz.question. So now we're passing these two prompts to this function. Here we prevent the default browser behavior, and then we're accessing the value for this selected question answer by accessing event.target.value. This is how we can structuring the value. Will be the same like just dot like that one. Be same as this here, just like that. And in E6 syntax, to avoid this duplication here, you can structuring it by calling it like that. And here then we're defining a variable. We check is this question exist in this selected answer. For example, to do that one, first we'll check if there is a selected answer and this selected answer has content, then try to find answer question. If this answer question equal to this question being selected, then return an object. And then after returning an object here, we'll make a condition. We check here if there is a question object, and if this question object has answer, then inside here we'll do this process. Otherwise, if there is no questions, basically simply just will update our selected answer. Because it's an array, we'll add array bracket, then we're spreading this initial selected answers, and we adding just the new one that at the bottom after all initial answers that we have in the array. And the complex scenario inside here, first condition. If this condition is true, then we'll map over all this answer, and then we're checking the answer question. Is it equal to this question that the just user answered? For example, if equaled, then we'll return an object with the question, the one that user just answered, and with the new answer that being added or being selected by the user. So this will be this object. Otherwise, we return this answer as it basically, and this will be assigned to variable. After this variable, we'll return back an array of list of answers, and we'll set back again the initial answer with this new value. This is how we can handle the answer that being selected by the user. So now we have handle answer change, and we have handle submit, and that should be it. Let's see if there is something we didn't import here. Is complain about use state is not defined. Let me just import use state and also use effect basically. And to import that one, we can import it from React here at the top, and after save it. For now, I'm not going to use effect. Let's just use that one, and that it. So basically now, if you go back, let's just clear this console again. If you select a category and select difficulty, add the number of quiz to, for example, submit, and now that it hiding the get question content and showing following answer questions. And as you see this here, this is the text is that we added, answer following questions, and this is the one that is the top here, and this is a paper that we added here, new paper. So basically for each question, as I mentioned earlier, this will be quiz data. We're mapping over all of this quiz data. Each quiz will have this paper, and inside each quiz we're displaying the quiz itself or the quiz question. Basically this is quiz question, and then we're adding this material UI select component, and inside this select component we map over each answer basically. This is a select component basically. When user press this select, it will show multiple answer here or list of answers. That's how we calling this quiz.answer.map. And then when a user select answer, it will be handled by this on change. It will call this handle answer change. On handle answer change, we accessing the event, and we passing this the question itself, and inside this handle answer change we do this logic here. So how we can update our initial selected answer by this new value, and also after selecting this answer. So as you see here, we have this one more semicolon we have. I don't know where this came from, this one here. Let's remove it and save it. As you see, that should be removed now. And now we need, after pressing this result, to show us the total result basically. Now we get list of question and we can answer them. Next step, we need, when we press this one, to show us the total result. To do that one, let's just create a component for total result. So here in component directory, just let's create a new file, and this file, call it total results. .jsx. So after creating the file, just let's create simple component here. So after creating this, just inside here, let's render total result. And simple as that, we can remove this import React, and we need to show this component basically when pressing this button. If we go back to this quiz answer component, so before rendering the total answer or total results component, we need to format actually this selected answer. If I just console log that selected answer here at the bottom before return, you can see how does it look like. So it's not in good format so that we can render it. If I just open this console log here and add more space, if you see this one has answer and has a question. So on total result, we need to get an array with a list of objects, and each object has correct answer and wrong answer, and also has a boolean is correct. But basically we can use this new key by calculating the answers that being answered by the user, and also to be relevant to the questions that already being answered. And to do this one, we need to create another function, and that function called processed answers. And this processed answer we can call it inside this handle result. After this event.prevent default, we can add this function here. In the function, first it will call this selected answer, and this is an array. And this array will be called back function. We accessing this answer and question to compare it with the original data. Now we have answer and we have question, but we need to check where if this answer is correct or wrong. How we can do that one? By comparing with the original data we get it from the API. And on this API already we have the correct answer. So we filtering, or we try to find a question equal to this question on original data. If got that, after getting that question, we call it related question. And here we make this condition. If correct answer in the related question equal to the answer that being selected by the user, then return this object, which will have correct answer. It will be set to the user answer, and with the boolean is correct to be true, and question the question that is being answered. Otherwise, we return an object has correct answer that we can access it from the related question, which is coming from the original data, and wrong answer, the user answer that being selected is correct to be false, and the question that being answered by the user. That's how this logic work inside process the answers. Then now, after we process this answer, we need to create a state for this basically, so we can use the value of this data. And to do that one, just let's duplicate this state and call it processed answers and set processed answer. And here it will be set. Let's just do this one and change this P to be capital P, and we need to call this set process answer. So to update the initial value from empty array to be this new data here. Just after this, we need after this line, this just set processed answer, and inside here is one, and this here is just misspelled. Let's correct that one. Processed answer, and copy this one and just set it with this one, and rename this with this one here. I need this one to be lowercase p, and this one we can then set the new processed answer by this value. We just by this function value, we just after format it. So now inside this processed answer we have array of object, and each object has correct answer, wrong answer, is correct, and question. So in this step will not have wrong answer, will have only correct answer and is correct and question itself. So later we can use this data inside that component that we call it here total answer. So which we didn't call it yet. Let's import the total answer here. Import total answers from / same directory, and just call it like that. So now if you see here the initial state of this processed answer, it will be empty array. When pressing handle submit, then we get this data. So next step, we can use this processed answer. We can make a condition by this one. Let's see, but before doing that, let's see what's wrong. We have here cannot resolve the directory for total answer. It's not total answer, actually it's total quiz, total results. So total results, that should be fixing it. After pressing this results button, it will call this handle result, and on this handle result will update the processed data to be this new value. So the initial one will be empty array. So then we can use this to make a condition, basically to render answering the question component or content, or showing total results component. And to do that, just after this return here, we can add a condition if processed answer, and if this, because this is an array, it will be true. And to access the actual boolean, we need to say dot links or dot length. If there is a content in processed answer, try to render this content here. Otherwise, after this, let's add a colon. It will render the total results component. So that's how it should be work. This should be the opposite, basically. If there is no processed data, for example, if there is no processed data, try to show this content, otherwise show the result component. And that initially it will be empty as we just said, but when press handle submit, or when pressing this result button, we'll call this handle submit. As you see here at the bottom, should be handle submit. This because the submit button will call this, will fire this on submit function, and this will call handle submit. And inside the handle submit, then we are updating this processed answer by this new value. Then it will replace this content with the total result component. If we press this button, as you see, this is compiling because required input or required select field, we need to select a value, and same as here. After selecting, let's add more space, press results. Woohoo! Now we have total results component with nothing. So we are going to render the actual value, so that being answered. And to do that one, we need to pass down some props to this component total results. This total results will expect 5 props. So to add that, let's just add it at here. This 5 props, the classes, so that we can use it for CSS. And this reset quiz, it is a function, basically it will be fired that we can add one more button, so user can reset the answer to start from beginning. And current steps, current quiz steps, so that we can update the current quiz steps to switch between components. And this here is processed answer. And last prop that we'll expect, this is a processed answer that we just created earlier. And last one will be set current quiz steps, so we can use this as a function to reset the current step that we are on now, to just restart again, adding new questions. And that now we have this 4 or 5 props. We need to display basically the total answer, that what we care about basically. And to do that one, I will just bring some content out from here. On the render here, return, let's remove this one, and going to add this HTML and material UI components. So this is just a div HTML element, and we're calling this inside this class, we're calling this results class that should be accessing it from these classes. We don't add that yet to the CSS classes that we have at the moment. Let me just bring that one. And it's just normal CSS that we need to add. If we go back to this quiz categories and use a style, after this question, let's add new line and add this new class here, or new property called results, and has only just display flex margin 0 auto to bring all the content in the middle of the screen, max width will give it just 150 pixel, text align to center to move all the text to center of the screen, and flex direction column to leave all the content in one column. So if we go back to total results here, now we need to import this typography and also need to import button, two components that need to import them from material UI on the top before this component. Just add new line, import that one, and we have button and we have typography. Let's see what else we have. We need to add this main title, we have it, that's good. And we need submit button, we have it. And here we have this process data. Here how we displaying the total result basically. First here we're showing this the title to tell the user this is the results screen, and then here we try to display the total result by accessing this processed answer. This is an array basically. We need to filter from this array because this array of object, and each object has its correct Boolean key. So we check if is it correct, return only if it is correct, and if it is correct we return array of object, and then we check the length of that array will be the number of the answer. Basically if there is 3 answers on that array will be 3, if 2 it will be 2, if 0 it will be 0. Then we say out of this one to add just a space between, and the total answers basically, the total questions answers. Then it will be the process answer dot length, this will be the total of them. So it will be basically the correct answer out of the total. That's how it will be displaying the answer. Then here we're creating a button. This button, it is also material UI button. You can access from material UI actually component. You can come back here and just search for buttons this here. You can get the code from here how to use the button. And then if you go back to our component or to our app screen, then we call this button here, we're adding on-click function. When the user press on this button, it will call this set current quiz to be review. So basically if we need to go to review section, which is a component that we are going to create, we didn't create yet, and or we have also second button here. If we need to reset, basically we need to go and start from beginning. We'll call a function called reset quiz. This function we need to create. So basically let's first create this function, and before creating this function, because these props will be passed to total result, and this total result being called here on quiz answers, so it will add a props here, just line equal, and this quiz answer component will get this reset quiz as a props also from quiz category, because quiz answers is a child of quiz category or being rendered inside this quiz category. And if you go scroll down, you can find that here basically we have this quiz answers. We can pass that additional one more props here, and here then where we can create our function called quiz or called reset const reset quiz. And inside here, inside this reset quiz, we can add some content that so we can reset everything to go to as initial step. So this one will also pass prom as event. So first line we prevent the default, nothing, it will prevent the browser from reloading. And second step we're resetting set current or set quiz data, and this one, the one that here we reset the quiz data to be empty array, so to start from again from beginning. And also we set category to be empty, we set the quiz number to be empty, difficulty to be empty, and we setting the current step to be start, so that will to allow displaying this content here again, the initial step. And we changing the window to scroll just to top by leaving only 20 pixels at the top to initial position basically. So user will not need to scroll to bottom to access the content. That's how the reset quiz function work. And we pass it down to quiz answer component, and from quiz answer we access it as a props. We pass it down to total result as a props again, and we access it here inside this total result. We pass now this quiz, our reset quiz. We need also to pass these classes. We can go back to QuizAnswers because this is already available on this component. We don't need to import it because it's already being passed as a props as a top here to this component here. And what else we need to add? We need to pass also current step and set current step also. And we need to get the current step basically from quiz category to pass it down to this quiz answer. Let's add one more line here. And this current quiz step, which is already being defined here, is state here at the top. We need also to pass set current quiz also as a second props. And just let's tidy up this one. And now we have these two set current quiz step and current quiz step. We need to pass it as a props here also to this component to quiz answers. From quiz answers we can pass it down to total result basically. This is called nested props. So we'll start from top component and going down to the smallest component, or from parent to child to sibling, and that way is it how it works basically, and how you can pass props down. And let's remove this one, be custom. We have custom, we have current, so this one is current quiz step and set current quiz step. We have this, we have passed this two props. There is one more props, we need to pass it to this total result. We have classes, we have reset quiz, current quiz step, process answer. That's the important one. The most important one we need to pass it. Processed answer. So now we pass this 5 props. We have the 5 props. We should be fine now. If we go back again, let's close this one, reload. Select category, select difficulty, add number of questions that we would like to get. Let's say 3. Press here will give us list of questions, and with answers we can press answers. Can randomly just select first one. For example, when I hit this result, should show me the total result. Now we have total result with the 2 buttons. One button to see a review of this answer that we selected, and a second button to reset and start from beginning. Review button, because we didn't create review component yet. Let's press reset. It should take us to beginning and start again. If we press reset, here we are. Start again from initial and set the initial category to be empty, difficulty to be empty, number of questions to be empty. That the reset button is working fine, but next step we need to add our review component where we can see list of the questions that we answered. So when press result, now we need next step. I've got 0 out of 2. Now next step we need to, when I press review, to show me list of questions with the correct and wrong answers. And to do that, first we need to create a component, call it review or quiz review. Is review .jsx. Hit enter. Inside here, let's just create simple React component. Let's remove all of this, and here just let's say return, just render for now quiz review. And let's, when pressing this review button, just show this very dummy component here, and go back to total results. And on total results we need to add a condition. Basically when the current steps equal to result here. Say this is current steps that props we got it. When the current steps equal to results, show the total results. Otherwise, show review component. Basically, when you're pressing this review, it will show us the review component. But if we press this reset basically will update everything. Will update the current step to be start, and when it is a start, if you go back to this quiz category, will show this content here. When make this condition is true, will show this instead of review component. And if you go back to total results here, let's add the components called quiz review. Let's open lesson quiz review and close the component. We need to import this component at the top here. Quiz review from same directory, so / save it. Now we import the component. We need when press review, just show that component. Here we are, quiz review component with nothing, but with this nicely paper. So next step, we need to show the actual question review, basically with the correct and wrong answers. And to do that, just let me already have a code here for question or for quiz review. And if I come back to quiz review here, just remove this div. Instead of this, add this text here. I'm going to explain this one by one, and I'm going to also remove this return. Here I'm creating a function render answers, and this quiz review will expect 3 props. Basically, we can add a review for all processed answer, so it will expect processed answers and classes and reset quiz. Basically, we can use this reset quiz to start again from beginning by adding this button here, and this button, when it's being clicked, we'll call just simply this reset quiz. Reset quiz will reset all the application to start from first step. And we pass in classes to add just CSS. Basically, we can access this paper class, and we can access the question and correct answer. We didn't add this yet, and I need to add that classes. And third one, the important one, processed answer. So we can access the processed answers, then show them with the correct and wrong answer. So here we're accessing this because an array of object, and I'm mapping over this array of object here. I'm creating this function to avoid having too much logic inside return, or when we're rendering the code. Basically, I'm creating this function here. It will expect answer, which will be this answers, will be this processed answers, and then we are mapping over all these answers. Each answer will have a question, is correct Boolean, correct answer, and wrong answer. This is the key that just we created earlier. And then with each question, I'm displaying, for example, this paper, and inside the paper, I'm displaying the question itself by calling this typography component, and then accessing the question by just this question as I just destructure it from here. This basically will be same as when, for example, if it's like this list of answer will be called back with the program called answer, and then to access a question of this answer will be like answer.question. Answer.question. Instead of like say dot, we can just destructuring that by using E6 syntax like this one. You can access question directly. You can then how we can here display the question itself. Then I'm making a condition here. if is correct, try to display only the correct answer. This is how I'm adding here. Just this typography with a class that has class name has two classes. One is answer and second one correct answer. So just to add some simple CSS. And here I'm adding this check component icon. So this will be with the check icon to indicate this is the correct answer. And here with the answer itself, basically displaying the answer itself. Otherwise, if it is not correct, it will show this close icon with wrong answer and with the right answer. So the wrong answer it will be with this close icon to indicate this is wrong, and the right answer or correct answer with the check answer to indicate this is the right answer. So I'm adding these classes here, this class to add the like a green color, and just to center the content of this with this icon. And for this close icon, because already Material UI is supporting this color, the red color will be secondary, but doesn't have this green color. I'm adding it manually to this check component or icon. So let's also add this create markup function. We can access this one also as a props. Basically, you can add one more props here. We need to pass it down to review quiz from TotalResult. We can pass that down to this, the props, and we can access actually this create markup because we don't have it here. We can pass it as a props to this component, and this TotalResult because it's called on QuizReview answer. It's called here. We can pass it down to this component as a props, and we can check where if we have it here or not. As you see here, we have, if we just search for this one, is also this one is expected as a props coming from top, is available. That's good. And we pass it from QuizReview down to TotalResult, and from TotalResult we pass it down to QuizReview, and then inside the QuizReview we can access as a props. That's good. So next is first step. And next step before adding the rest of the props, let's first bring these Material UI components. And we have two Material UI components, or three: paper, button, typography. Just before this line, before the function add new line, import it at the top here. And also we need to import the icons from Material UI also, but that will be from different section here. Instead of Material icon will be Material UI/icon. So that now we have icons, we have components imported, and next we need to pass these three basically props as classes: reset quiz and process answer. To pass that, we need to pass it down from total results here, as this is already being added. Let me just quickly add that one. You just remove this comma, equal, as the props. It's already being added. You need to remove this one. Classes. Just remove the comma, add equal, and same for, let me add more space. And here I need to add for reset quiz equal. Let me just tidy up this function to be more readable. After saving this, need to go to import to make sure this is being added from top here. We have reset quiz, we have processed data, we have classes. Alright, that's good. If we go back to the if we go back to QuizReview, now we have everything except these two or three classes. Correct answer, let's see if we have correct answer class here or not. We don't have a correct answer class. No, we don't have it. Let me bring the correct answer. And answer have basically two classes: correct answer and answer class. After this one, answer, correct answer, a simple CSS. And let's see if there is any more class we need to bring. and that it basically. If we save it and just recap this one quickly, is just we created here a component. This component expects 4 props. Here I created a function to map over each answer, and over each answer I'm creating this paper component, and here we'll display the question, the answer question, and here I'm making condition if the question is correct to display only the correct answer, otherwise display the wrong answer and correct answer. And also adding an icon for correct answer will be check, and for wrong answer it will be close to indicate if is it right or wrong. And then down here on render, I'm displaying this title to tell the user this is the answer review screen, and then at the second or third line I'm displaying the actual questions with their answers. And on the button here, I'm adding this button to tell the user can reset and start from beginning. That it basically. Let's go and see that directly here. If I press a question, select a question, and difficulty easy, for example 3 questions, submit. I have now list of questions, can select answers, so select only first answers. I don't know if that's wrong or right. Press results, this shows the total result. Wow, 3 out of 3, that was just randomly. Wow, I like that one. Now I have 2 options, to reset, start from beginning, or review to show me list of this. This will show me just all the question with the right answer, because I've got 3 out of 3 this first time. Review, now I have all of them. This will be a question with the answer, and that is being ticked with a check icon, or also with the green color. And now we have reset button to start from beginning. If I press reset, now it starts from beginning. I can add one more category with the difficulty medium, number of question 5, submit. Now we have 5 questions, and it just select also randomly. Let's see how many time we'll get. Select answer randomly and press result. And now I can, I got only 1 out of 5. I can press review, so now will tell me this is a question, the answer that I selected is wrong, but the correct answer is this one, and the same for the rest. And the only one that now I got it right, this question, that was showing me all is the right answer. So now I can press reset. And last one, we need to do the scenario that from total result I can press reset button instead of review. Let me again select categories, medium, number 4, submit. I can answer here questions, list of questions. After I answer them, press results. From here I don't need to see the review, I need just reset and start from beginning. Here we are. Now all the functionalities work, and that is responsive basically. And also it's work on desktop, laptop, and iPad and everything. And last one thing that we need to just add the CSS. If you see the original app that we have background image on our CSS here, I need to add to this index.css some CSS behavior. I'm hiding the scroll bar so that to avoid just jiggling, so to affect the background image, that's affecting the background image. So just I'm hiding that by calling the body, and using this way you can just display on the scrolling bar. This will be work for Chrome, Safari, Opera, and this second scenario here will be working for Internet Explorer and Firefox. And also I need to add a background image, and to do that one, I'm adding to the body itself this image. Basically, just let me add more space showing what I added here. I'm adding this background image, and I'm importing this background image from my GitHub repository. And if you don't know how to add an image to GitHub repository, I already created a video to do that one. I will leave the video URL down of this video. And here also I'm adding just background repeat to be not repeated, and the background size to be covered to cover all the content. And also if you see that the background image didn't take all the full height, we need to set the body height, the minimum height, to be 100 view height, and that will fixing it. That is basically that. Here we are. And also I forget to showing you how this dangerouslySetInnerHTML works. So basically now this is the time we can get an example for this one. For example, if I just copy this quiz.question and disable this line here, so this is where it will show the quiz on QuizAnswers. So basically if I just access the question directly without using this dangerouslySetInnerHTML, and let's see, first let's open here the terminal or the console log here, and then let's select a category. For example, this category, difficulty medium, number of quiz 5, and press submit. As you see here, this is the first question showing this icon here. So this HTML icon, React cannot actually display this without using this function here. And if you see, also you need to see that the actual data here on the response on the console log down. And this is the first question here. If we open first one, the question itself here has this code. So to have this code rendered properly, then we need to use this approach. If I just remove this one and enable this line again, save it. Let's reload again, start from beginning, clear the console, and let's select the same category, difficulty easy, number of questions 5, press submit. And now this one, all of them hardly to know if they has that code or not, but we can check here the console log and see if there is any one of them has this code. If we check the first question, doesn't have. Let's check the second one. Second one here also doesn't have. Third one, third question also doesn't have. Fourth question, the fourth question here, this one has this code here. Basically it's saying when once is then this code. Let's see here, this is the fourth one. Let's scroll down. This here, when is instead of that code, instead of this code here or could, it's saying could. So it's showing this double quote, the actual double quote, but in the HTML text it's just a code, it's not a code. And that's how we can use this dangerouslySetInnerHTML function to fix that issue in React app. And next step also that I forget, we need to refactor this one. Basically, if I just close this one, if you see here on this quiz answer or quiz category component, so as you see here we have this difficulties and this create markup function. We can cut both of them, we can create one directory to share them across all components. So just outside components here, inside source, let's create a file, call it helpers.js, and then inside here paste these two functions and export both of them, and that already adding this export here. And if I go back to quiz categories, then I can import them here, import. Then I need to import them because I import them as a single or as a file has multiple imports. So I can open this curly braces and then inside I can call my function or variable, and then that will be from dot slash double b double dot, because outside the directory of components, then helpers, and the two functions that we need to import, just this one, create markup function, and second one is the difficulty array or difficulties. And now if I just save it, should be go back and work correctly. That's fine. And also I can set this also this CSS actually to be as a file that inside the helper too. So this will be called styles, and the styles will come from helpers too, comma styles. And let's go to helper and create another file, call it first, let's say export const styles, assign it to this object and save it. That should fixing it. So now we minimize this directory or this file by removing that three variables, and now we can access them by using this approach, just importing them. And if you remember also here, I was passing this function called create markup as a prop. So now because that is inside the helper directory, I can just remove that. And another component, for example, in this quiz answer component, I can import it directly from this helper instead of accessing it as a props. So I can minimize the number of props that I'm passing down. So if you go to this quiz answers here, on quiz answer, we're expecting this create markup function. It's using it here. So now I can import it at the top here. And let's remove everything. I need only the markup function, and I can remove it from being as a props, and that is being used inside down here or render. If I just let me add more space here, it's being used inside the component itself, and also is passed down to as a props to this component called TotalResult. We can also remove it from here as a props, and we can access it directly from this helper directory, which is called TotalResults component. At the top here, I can just import that and remove it from being passed as a props, and that it basically is being imported from helper directory. Let's see if there is anything we can import or we can refactor here. And I just remember also one last more things on quiz answer. We have added here unnecessary condition, or this second scenario. Basically this function in all scenarios, if there is a actual result, we return it, otherwise we return empty string. So if let's go to this function here, if there is an answer, so return it, otherwise return empty string, as same as here. So we don't need to duplicate that again here. Can remove this one, that will fix also the issue. This is just for cleaning. And you can remove also this console log, we don't need it. And that it's so beside also on quiz answer here, I can add one more use effect function here to scroll, to leave like 20 pixels at the top when user navigate between different components. So if this component already being scrolled down of the screen, automatically when the component being rendered, it will be scrolled to top. So to do that, we can just call this window dot scroll to the X, or the horizontal will be 0 and vertical will be 20 pixels. And we need to just import this one from React. Let's add a comma here and import it from React. And this same we need to add it to, we need to do this behavior on TotalResult. Can just add one new line here before return and add this one. And we need to import it from React too, the same as we did here. And copy this one and go to TotalResult. And before this, we can import use effect. So basically this, when we just reload this component, it will check if the window is being scrolled to bottom, it will scroll it to top, so to leave just only 20 pixels at the top. And let's add it. So copy this one, go to QuizReview, and after the function name, I can add that use effect and I can import it from React. So after this line, let's import it. And let's check quiz category. We added to reset. Yeah, reset quiz function. Yeah, we added it here. So that is basically, if we, I will just show you what I mean. Basically, see this. Initially, it sometimes will be scrolled to be like that. There is no any padding at the top. So we need, for example, if I reload this page and try to select any category, any number, and with any difficulty, if I just press submit, automatically it will scroll and leave this margin at the top. If I select answers and just press result, also here will leave this automatically this padding. For any reason that scroll to top, so this function or this line we added, it will leave 20 pixels at the top here, and just when after the component being rendered. And if I press review, or maybe if I press result, will take me to back, and even with the same this to make sure leaving this margin at the top, so we do not let the user to scroll manually, so this will do automatically for the user, basically for better user experience improvement. And that everything basically we forgot to do. So now so if I reload, this is our application, and I can select questions and so in the large screen, list of question results, can review it basically. And if you are new to my channel, don't forget to press subscribe and enable the bell to get all videos like this and new content. And also, if you like this video, don't forget to press thumb up. That will support me to continue to add more works. And thank you for waiting and being patient for this very long tutorial. And I hope you get a benefit of it. And see you on next video.